Morning, Kirsty.
Good morning.
Welcome. Thank you so much for hosting our Crystal Ball again this year. So you heard a lot of predictions from the panellists this year. What are your own predictions for 2020?
A key prediction of mine will be that Scotland will be a huge focus next year because there is huge pressure on the Union. Now, either we're going to have a Conservative government, which may lead us to a hard Brexit. It may lead us to a no-deal Brexit. If that happens, then Nicola Sturgeon will again press for a referendum, which she cannot have without the permission of Westminster, but she'll press for it and say that she's got legitimacy because of the result of the election. Probably the SNP will do very well in the election anyway. So there's either going to be pressure because there's a Conservative government, or pressure because Nicola Sturgeon's nationalists are needed to prop up with confidence and supply a Corbyn government. And her key ask on that is for another independence referendum next year. So definitely the focus on Scotland because of that. The other reason there'll be a focus on Scotland is because the trial of Alex Salmond will essentially be the first UK Me Too trial, and that could well be explosive. That's my first prediction. My second prediction is that the world of fashion will change yet again, and there is going to be a huge pressure on one in, one out. People will be much more mindful of what they're shopping for. People will also feel their purses tightening anyway, I think, next year. And there's going to be much more care and a much more ethical effort with fashion, which of course people at Livia Firth started. But I think that will cross into the mainstream. And there's going to be a lot of pressure on people to give before they receive. So you give something away before you buy something. Thirdly, I do really think we are going to see a lot of pressure on the royal family. And I think that will manifest itself in a variety of ways, some of which we can't possibly foresee. But I do think the whole idea of the civil list, the public purse, what are the royals for, will come under scrutiny ever more in 2020.
Last year, you talked about climate change and the climate emergency now, and you said that food and drink and the way we purchase it would have to change. Has enough changed in the past year?
Absolutely not. Now, two things are happening here. The whole question of plastic bags, maybe totemic, may not be, but the idea that actually there'll be 70p a bag because we're buying far too many, bags for life, but they're just not bags for life. The problem with that is if you have so much packaging by the manufacturers and the retailers on stuff, then it's kind of a moot point as to whether you are really making a difference. So I think the way things are sold is going to have to change. And actually, we're just not going to have anything with us that's plastic. Just have a Hessian bag. We're going to see, I think, going back to what happened in the 50s and 60s, we're going to shop in that way. So I think that's incredibly important. I also think every glass bottle, every bottle should have a return price. At the moment, we're seeing the return of, I remember as a child, if you took a bottle back, you got sixpence or whatever it was. I think that's going to happen. And the reason that it doesn't now is because retailers say we haven't got the space. Well, they had the space before. But I think that's going to be forced upon them. Reuse is the big thing for next year. Reuse and don't abuse. And we need to actually make a massive step change. But the key thing is carbon footprint as well. Every company, BBC, Edelman, my own, we've all got to think about how we travel, what we do and how we offset it. I mean, in this election we're having just now, Labour talks about 2 billion trees by 2040. We should all be offsetting everything we do all the time. You just join the Woodland Trust, keep getting trees planted all the time. You make it your own ethical decision.
The panel today seemed quite pessimistic about the year ahead. How are you feeling? Pessimistic, optimistic?
Well, I have got a 27-year-old and a 28-year-old, so I want to be optimistic because I think that there's huge amounts of promise in that generation. What I think is that they have got to find some kind of vehicle to become part of civic life and to feel comfortable at being part of civic life. The whole thing about trolling is so depressing. The whole idea that people aren't going to stand for election because they're so concerned about the trolling they're receiving. I want young people to find a way to take part in public life, to become, to do their civic duty, as it were, and to feel the need to do their civic duty in a safe place. That's the only thing that's going to restore trust, and that was one of the things that was said this morning, is that trust is broken.
Kirsty Wark, thank you very much for coming to see us today.
Pleasure.